Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at a pretty strange book. This is a Fantagraphics book by Ruppert and Mulot called the Perineum Technique. I really like everything else I've got from Ruppert and Mulot so far, and so I grabbed this up in the Fantabucks sale. It's probably my least favorite of their work just because it's so strange in format. It took me a while to figure out what was going on, though, so I think maybe in a second read through, like, the story might reveal itself a little bit more to me, but it's just a strange story overall. So we start off with this gigantic tower here, and you have these characters at the top of the tower, and they push themselves over. They've got like a sword and a knife. They're taking their clothes off, and you're getting the sense that they're really looking for some kind of extreme sexuality, and this is like the only way that they can get off. What I hadn't picked up on at first is like that the panel borders were wobbly, and that there's a reason for that throughout the book, but you don't really figure out the reason until you get near the end of the book. So that's why I'm saying I'd have to cycle back around and read it. But they're like crashing down towards their imminent demise here. And then you come to the real world where you see that the man is this character JH, and you learn that he's on Skype basically having like a sex chat with this woman named Sarah, where they just play with themselves in front of each other. And this is, you start to think, okay, this is some fantasy that they're talking to each other about, but it's still a very weird fantasy to be having. You get introduced also to JH's assistant here. You don't know what she's an assistant for quite yet, but his assistant. Now, JH, it comes out later in the book, is a pretty famous artist in the museum, gallery, fine art world. He came out, had a really successful first show, kind of rode on that fame for a while, but now people are starting to realize that he's not as great as they thought he was, and he's working on videos, 2 videos for his new show, but throughout the course of the story, he realizes those are no good. So by the end of the book, what you come to understand is that if the panels have these wobbly borders on them, that means these are the new videos that he's made inspired with his relationship with this gal on Skype, Sarah. So that's kind of setting up the overall plot of the book. Here, once his assistant Julie leaves, they go back to their Skype session, and you can see this very strange metaphor for sex where they're colliding down this tower to satisfaction. This is kind of representing the end of their time together on Skype for the day. So this now is to be understood as him making some kind of abstract, surreal statement about his feelings about the woman or their sexuality together, things like that, that will be basically all the videos that he's showing in his show at the end of the book. So once I knew that, it's like retroactively the rest of the book makes a little bit more sense. Here you get this scene where you first start getting a clue. It took me a little bit later to get it. I wasn't paying enough attention while I was reading, but this is his original 2 videos that he was trying to make. One of them was going to be people chopping their fingers off, and this is him here working with his video editor on the sound effects that he wants. Then he finally convinces Sarah to meet in person. She's pretty reluctant to meet in person. She's fine with the sex chats on Skype, but she invites him to a swingers party. And this is where I got really confused about the wobbly borders, because I was thinking that they were suggesting their imaginary headspace. And then in this scene, he's going to this swingers party where everyone's wearing a mask, but he's, it's supposed to be something different. It's weird. They're just going to a dinner. And during that, things get strange again, but not really. It's pretty reasonable that this was actually what they went and did, but it's got the wobbly borders on it, so I wasn't sure. So then retroactively, I have to come back and think, wait, what actually happened to that party? We don't know, because this was obviously the film he's making. And that ends here, and really they're just like sitting on the couch and watching what's going on. So you don't know what kind of actual involvement they had, and this is obviously at the end of the night. You don't know if she really jerked him off under the table like is suggested in the film. There's a lot of things going on there that's like, well, I don't really know what happened at this party. They didn't seem to have engaged. Maybe they just watched. I'm not sure. But he eventually they go out, and the woman here explains to him, that he came too quick for her tastes, and so she's going to teach him this perineum technique, which is where a man can like develop the muscle strength in to stop himself from coming but still have an orgasm. So she's teaching him this technique, and basically is like, we're not going to have any relations until you can do that. And then she says, I'm going to be gone for 4 months, so if you can like not come for the entire 4 months, then we can go to another one of these dinners together. So he spends a lot of this time just sexually frustrated, even though he's able to achieve orgasms throughout the book. He's not able to ejaculate because of this technique that he's employing, and that's still driving him crazy. So that's a huge part of the storyline here. Here is after they meet back up again, he's going out to dinner and is all excited that he's going to be engaging with her in the activities he wants to be. And there's some nice visual metaphors of like he walks in and sees another guy there, and it's like he's getting punched by the boxer. And then she says that this guy taught her the technique, and you have the boxer hitting him again. So there's a lot of interesting things like that are just these surreal metaphors to convey the emotion of the story in an iconic way, a pictographic way, which is interesting. We get another scene here that is to be understood as in the movies later on, where he's got all these girls on a kerosene thing and they're lighting cigarettes. This is really interesting because these are drawings by Bastien Vives, who has collaborated with Ruppert and Mulot on the Olympia series of books, but also you just see the Bastien Vives sexy girl he does, where there's no eyes and there's the big flowing hair, and I could definitely spot that style, but they also credit him in the beginning, so I was looking out for that as I went, but I could definitely spot that stuff. And there's another point in here, right here, where they're going to go out again, and they're going to see a play or an opera, and they're going to get filthy there. And the gal Sarah says that this is by an 18th century German opera by a guy named Schrauen. And Ruppert and Mulot have also collaborated with Olivier Schrauen. So I wonder if that's a reference to him, or if I know there's the book I haven't read about his grandfather or ancestor. I wonder if that's a reference to that, or if it's just coincidence. But I know they've collaborated, so that seems to me to be a shout out to their friend as well. And then they go and engage in this like big long sex journey together, and apparently on the top of the opera house, because this one is not in the weird wobbly borders, or I don't know if that's just how they feel about it, but they're definitely getting freaky at the opera house together. And then that basically wraps up the story. You get another visual of them coming. It seems like they're now in a relationship together, and she sees his show, and then you see all of these images that you've seen throughout the book in the wobbly panel borders, like the dinner party and that kind of stuff, represented as films that are being watched in his show. The implication is that these films now have revived his career, but that's never said explicitly. And you kind of leave off with like not knowing really what's going on with their relationship either. So it's a pretty open-ended book. It's, I think, a strange little story to tell, but it does get to, a lot of stuff about human sexuality and adults' loneliness and things like that. Also the struggles of an artist. So this is a thematically rich book, but it kind of opens and ends in a weird way. It does seem very like French to me, the more kind of poetic, abstract, surreal things where the reader's going to contribute a lot more to it. So probably out of all of their books that I've read so far, my least favorite one, just because it was more vague and vaporous. I quite like most of their stories are pretty tight and controlled. And, but their style, the visuals they come up with are always amazing. They have this little broken stutter line thing they do. They always come up with these beautiful images, even, when they're being surreal and strange, they get these beautiful visuals. So still a huge fan of Ruppert and Mulot. I just think personally this one with the strange story about a guy trying not to ejaculate for 4 months is just not so much my thing. But within the body of their work, it holds an interesting place. The Exile by Eric Creek is a gorgeously illustrated Viking saga of revenge. Eric Creek calls it his Viking Western. It's about a guy who's been away on the warpath and is returning home to some family troubles that have to be resolved. And this is told in just this amazing, like, kind of three-color art style that looks like old woodblock cuts or something. It's absolutely gorgeous book that you've got to pick up.